She was a quiet girl living in a small town where life moved slowly and dreams often stayed hidden. She had grown up surrounded by people who thought that practical jobs were the only way to survive. Her house was modest, not filled with luxuries, and she had never seen a real piano lesson or a grand music school. But even with all this, she loved music. From the moment she could remember, the piano had been a part of her life. It was an old, worn instrument, one that her family had gotten secondhand. Its keys were chipped in places, some notes sounded strange, and it never stayed in tune for long. Yet, she loved it. She would sit in front of it for hours, sometimes playing familiar tunes, sometimes experimenting with new sounds she had never heard before. Every day after school, while other kids rushed to sports practice or hung out with friends, she would go to the piano. She would close the door to her small room and let herself be lost in the sound. There was no one to watch, no one to judge, only the music and her hands moving over the keys. At first, she made many mistakes. Her fingers would slip, the rhythm would go wrong. Sometimes she would get frustrated and sit back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. But slowly, she began to notice small improvements. A note that once sounded awkward would now flow smoothly. A rhythm she struggled with would finally feel natural. Each small success gave her hope. Her parents were kind, but practical. They admired her love for music, but they also worried. They would say things like, "Music is beautiful, but you need something real to fall back on," or "You should focus on your studies, not just the piano." They wanted her to have security in life, something they had learned to value after years of hard work. Friends at school were polite when she talked about her piano, but she noticed the doubt in their eyes. Some whispered to each other about how she spent too much time with something that would never make a difference. A few even laughed softly when she played simple tunes during recess. These moments hurt, but they also made her more determined. She began to practice even harder, often late at night when the house was quiet and no one could tell her she was wasting her time at school. She was not the most popular or the loudest. She was often overlooked in group activities, and teachers rarely noticed her. She would sit quietly in the back, watching others get attention, while she worked silently on her own. She started to learn not to expect praise or recognition. The music itself became her reward. When she played a melody perfectly, she felt a sense of accomplishment that no applause could match. She knew that she was improving, even if no one else did. She also became an observer. She watched how successful musicians performed in videos online, learning their techniques, their expressions, the way they moved their hands. She memorized every detail, practicing again and again until it felt natural. She would record herself on her phone, listen, and notice mistakes she could correct. Sometimes she would stay up until the early hours of the morning, her room lit only by a small lamp, completely absorbed in the music. It was exhausting, but she felt alive. It was the only time she felt completely herself. Even with all this dedication, doubt from others never fully went away. Sometimes people would say, "Why do you waste so much time on the piano?" Or "It's just a hobby, nothing serious." These words stung. There were moments she considered giving up, wondering if she was chasing an impossible dream. But then she would sit at the piano, place her fingers on the keys, and feel the music flow. In those moments, all the doubt vanished. The piano became her safe place, her friend. Her voice when words were not enough. Her school had a music room, but it was usually reserved for the more talented or popular students. She had to fight for a chance to practice there, often sneaking in between classes or staying after school. Even when she managed to get a slot, other students would sometimes peek in and whisper, questioning why she was there. Their doubts and laughter were heavy, but she learned to ignore them. The sound of the piano, the feel of the keys under her fingers, was stronger than their opinions. She also began to notice something important: her own strength. The more she practiced alone, the more she realized that she did not need constant approval. Her love for music was enough. She learned patience, discipline, and resilience. She learned to face frustration without giving up, to celebrate small victories, to find joy in the process, not just the outcome. Every evening she sat at the piano, She was not just playing music. She was shaping her character, her confidence, and her courage. At home, her family noticed her dedication. They could see the change in her posture, in her determination. They saw how she would sometimes sit quietly, eyes closed, lost in the music. And they understood that this was important to her. Even if they didn't always understand it fully, they began to support her more, giving her space and quiet time to practice. Her little room became a sanctuary, a place where she could escape from the doubts of the world and grow in her own way. Over time, she developed a habit of creating her own music. She would invent melodies, combining sounds she had heard online with the feelings she carried inside. Some pieces were soft and gentle, almost like whispers. Others were bold and loud, expressing emotions she could not put into words. These compositions became her signature, a way to speak her heart when no one else seemed to listen. The world outside her room continued to doubt her, but she learned to rise above it. Each note she played was a statement, a quiet rebellion against the disbelief of others. She began to see that success was not about being recognized by everyone. It was about knowing that she was giving her best, that she was growing, and that her passion had meaning. The piano was her companion, her teacher, and her judge. It never mocked her, never doubted her, never turned away, even when life was difficult. When school was stressful or friends were unkind, she returned to the piano. The keys became a place where she could pour out her emotions, where anger, sadness, and joy could transform into music. Every evening, as the sun set and the house grew quiet, she would sit there and let her soul speak. The piano absorbed every note, every mistake, every triumph. And slowly, quietly, she was changing not just as a musician, but as a person. People might have doubted her, but she was learning a secret they did not understand. True talent is not measured by applause or recognition, but by the dedication and love one pours into it. Her journey had just begun, and though no one knew it yet, her music was about to speak louder than anyone's doubt. Each evening, as her fingers moved over the worn keys, she felt a quiet power growing inside her, one that would eventually change the way the world saw her. She was ready to face the challenges ahead. The piano would be her voice through it all. She'd grown more confident in her private world of music. But outside, life still pressed heavily on her. School was not kind to her passion, and friends often questioned her choices. They would say things like, "Why waste your time on that old piano?" Or "You should do something more practical." At first, their words stung sharply, but over time she learned to listen without letting them destroy her. She realized that her journey was hers alone, and that the doubts of others could not dictate her dreams. At home, she kept practicing, often into the late hours when the house was quiet and the world seemed to disappear. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a friend, a companion, a secret she could trust. Every note, every chord felt like a conversation she could have only here, where no one judged, where mistakes were just steps toward improvement. She developed a routine that was rigorous. She warmed up, practiced scales, revisited pieces she loved, and explored new melodies she invented herself. The process was slow, painstaking, and sometimes exhausting, but she loved it. Every day brought a small victory, even if invisible to anyone else. Her dedication did not go unnoticed by her family. They saw her determination and the way she would close herself off from distractions to focus on the piano. Sometimes they would peek into her room and watch her quietly. They did not always understand the technical details or the long hours, but they began to respect the effort she was putting in. Her father, who rarely showed emotion, would sometimes nod in approval when he noticed her practicing a difficult piece flawlessly. Her mother, who worried constantly about her future, would smile. Knowing that her daughter was finding joy in something that made her alive, school continued to be a challenge. Teachers praised other students and encouraged them to perform publicly, while she remained unnoticed. Some classmates made fun of her, questioning why she spent so much time alone with her piano, instead of being out with friends or joining more popular activities. These experiences could have broken her spirit, but she found strength in the music itself. Each time she sat at the piano, the doubts of the outside world faded. It was here that she felt powerful, capable, and alive. Her practice sessions grew more complex as she experimented with different styles. She explored classical pieces, trying to understand the depth of each note. She learned to play emotionally, not just technically, focusing on conveying feeling through sound. She studied videos of accomplished pianists, memorizing their movements, observing their hands, their expressions, their timing. She imitated and adapted what she saw, blending it with her own creativity. Sometimes she would play a passage over and over again, until her fingers memorized every movement, and her mind could feel the music before her hands even moved. The world outside her practice room did not make things easy. Friends would invite her out, and when she declined, they would tease her. Teachers would give her minimal attention, assuming she was not serious or lacked natural talent. At times, she felt invisible, like a shadow moving through the hallways. But even in those moments, she discovered resilience. She began to understand that her value did not depend on recognition or applause. Her worth was found in her dedication. In the joy she felt when a piece came together perfectly, when a melody she created sounded just as she imagined, she also faced internal challenges. Frustration often arose when a difficult section refused to come together. Her fingers would stumble, her timing would go off, and sometimes she would want to give up entirely. But she had learned patience. She would take deep breaths, slow down, break the piece into smaller sections, and tackle each one meticulously. Over time, what once seemed impossible became manageable. Every challenge she overcame strengthened not only her skills, but her confidence. She realized that struggle was part of growth, and that persistence often mattered more than talent alone. Despite the difficulties, she also experienced moments of pure joy. When she finally mastered a piece that had given her weeks of trouble, she would feel an exhilaration that no words could describe. She would sometimes close her eyes and imagine herself performing in front of an audience, letting the music carry her through emotions she had never expressed before. These daydreams became a source of motivation, pushing her to work harder, to perfect every note, and to explore every nuance of sound. She began to experiment with composing her own music. At first, it was simple short melodies that expressed a feeling or a memory. But gradually, her compositions became more complex, more layered, reflecting a depth of emotion that surprised even herself. She would write down the notes, play them repeatedly, adjust them, and refine them until they sounded just right. Each piece became a personal story, a reflection of her inner world, a way to communicate when words were insufficient. Music was no longer just practice. It was a language she was creating for herself. Even with this growth, the pressure to abandon her dream persisted. Adults around her, including extended family and neighbors, would comment on her choice, questioning whether she was wasting time on something that would never lead to stability. Some of her friends quietly drifted away, not understanding her dedication. The isolation could have been painful, but she found comfort in the piano. Every note reminded her that she was not alone, that her music was her voice, that one day it might be heard by others who truly understood. Her determination led her to take small risks. She started participating in school events, performing quietly, often without expectation of applause. Sometimes her performances went unnoticed. Sometimes she received polite claps. But each time, she felt a subtle thrill, a recognition that she was stepping out of her comfort zone. Testing her skills in front of others, even if only a few noticed, these experiences helped her grow, slowly building courage and resilience. Outside of structured practice, she observed life keenly. She listened to the rhythm of the town, the sounds of everyday life, the laughter of children, the conversations of adults. And she translated these sounds into music in her own mind. She began to understand that music was everywhere, and her role was to capture it, to give it shape, to make it resonate. This perspective deepened her understanding of the art and enriched her. Playing, she also found inspiration in the stories of musicians who had struggled before achieving recognition. She read about people who had faced rejection, criticism, and doubt, yet continued to follow their passion. These stories became a quiet encouragement. She realized that her struggles were not unique, and that perseverance could eventually lead to success. She absorbed these lessons silently, letting them strengthen her resolve rather than distract her, even in moments of solitude and doubt. She discovered the transformative power of music. When life felt heavy, when others doubted her, or when the world seemed indifferent, she would sit at the piano, close her eyes, and let the music carry her. Every key pressed was a declaration of her commitment, a refusal to surrender to negativity, a step toward her dreams. She felt a deep connection between her emotions and the instrument. As if the piano itself understood her in ways no human could. She also became more disciplined in her daily life. She managed schoolwork, responsibilities at home, and practice time with careful planning. She realized that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, organization, and persistence were equally important. She learned to balance her world carefully, making space for music without neglecting other parts of her life. This balance helped her maintain focus and continue growing steadily. The more she practiced, the more she noticed subtle changes in herself. Her confidence grew, though it was quiet and understated. She walked with a little more poise, spoke with a bit more clarity, and felt a sense of purpose that had been absent before. She began to understand that her journey was about personal growth as much as musical skill. The piano had taught her patience, resilience, creativity, and self-belief qualities that would shape her entire life by the time she had reached this stage. The piano had become an inseparable part of her identity. It was not just an instrument or a hobby, it was a mirror of her soul. Every evening, as she sat in front of it, she could feel the accumulation of years of practice, the quiet victories, the lessons learned from mistakes, and the hope for the future. She knew that one day the world might listen, but until then, the piano would be her constant companion, guiding her, challenging her, and reflecting her journey in every note she played. She had spent years in quiet practice, building skills in the shadows unnoticed by most people around her. But one ordinary morning, an opportunity appeared that could change everything. A small music event was scheduled in her town, designed to showcase local talent. Flyers had been posted around the school and community centers inviting anyone who wished to perform. At first she hesitated. Her mind was filled with doubt. She wondered if she could actually perform in front of strangers. If the piano would sound right, if she could handle the pressure of an audience. Yet, deep inside, a small spark of excitement began to grow. This could be her chance to step out from the quiet corners of her room and let her music speak. Her friends reacted with surprise when she mentioned the event. Some laughed softly, thinking it would be amusing to see her attempt a performance. Others tried to discourage her, saying things like, "Why would you risk embarrassing yourself? And you are better off just practicing at home." Even her teachers seemed doubtful, assuming that the shy girl who always sat quietly in the back of the classroom would never step onto a stage and command attention. Their words could have crushed her resolve, but she remembered the countless nights spent at the piano, the hours of hard work, and the feelings that music had always given her. That memory became her shield against doubt. She registered for the event, her hands trembling slightly as she filled out the form. Every step felt both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time, she had to think beyond her private practice, imagining how she would perform in front of people who had never seen her play before. She worried about making mistakes, about the piano not sounding right, about how the audience would react. But she also felt a thrill she had never experienced before, the possibility that her music could touch others, that her passion could be seen and appreciated. In the days leading up to the performance, she increased her practice time. She revisited pieces she had mastered, polished her movements, and created a special routine for the event. She also experimented with expression, thinking carefully about how to communicate emotions through each note. She imagined the audience listening to her music, imagining their faces reacting to the feelings she poured into the piano. These thoughts motivated her, helping her overcome the anxiety that occasionally surfaced. Her family noticed the change in her. Her parents saw her nervous energy and the way she immersed herself in preparation. They offered quiet support, giving her space and encouragement. Her father suggested, "Just play as you always do at home. Let the piano tell your story." Her mother smiled and said, "We will be there, and that's all that matters." Their support helped her feel stronger. She realized that performing was not just about impressing strangers. It was about sharing a part of herself with the world. When the day of the event arrived, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The room was filled with other performers, some confident, some nervous, but all ready to showcase their talent. The audience began to fill the seats, chatting and laughing. She watched from behind the curtains, her heart racing. Whispers of doubt floated around her, from her own mind and from others who were curious about the shy girl who had signed up. Some wondered if she would withdraw at the last minute, but she stood tall, took a deep breath, and reminded herself why she had spent all those years practicing. The piano had been her friend, and now it was her voice. When it was finally her turn, she walked onto the stage, feeling the cool floor beneath her feet and the lights shining softly on her. The piano sat at the center, polished and inviting, its keys gleaming under the stage lights. She took a seat, adjusted the bench, and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of the countless evenings spent in her room, practicing alone, learning, making mistakes, and growing. She thought of the doubts she had faced and the perseverance that had brought her here. Slowly, she opened her eyes, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, testing the feel of the piano in this new environment. She could hear the subtle hum of the audience, but she focused on the music, letting it guide her. As she continued, her confidence grew. The melody flowed naturally, and her fingers moved with ease and precision. She played not to impress, but to express, pouring her emotions into every chord and every pause. The room gradually grew quiet. Conversations ceased and all eyes turned toward her. People leaned forward in their seats, listening closely to the music that carried more than just sound. It carried her story. Her struggle, her quiet triumphs. She played with emotion, shaping the dynamics and timing to reflect the feelings she had learned to express over years of solitary practice. Every note resonated with dedication. Every pause held meaning. The audience could sense the journey behind the music, the countless hours spent honing her skill, the quiet determination that had carried her through doubt and discouragement. They were not just hearing a performance. They were witnessing a story told through sound. When the final note faded, there was a moment of stillness so deep it seemed to suspend time itself. The audience sat in silence, absorbing what they had just experienced. Then, slowly, applause began, growing louder and louder until the room was filled with the sound of recognition. Some people even stood, clapping enthusiastically, acknowledging the power of her performance. The whispers of doubt had vanished, replaced by genuine admiration. She felt a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. The piano had spoken for her, silencing skepticism and conveying her dedication in a way words never could. After the performance, people approached her, praising her skill and expression. Many expressed surprise, admitting they had doubted her, not expecting such a powerful and moving performance from the quiet girl they had overlooked. Teachers, classmates, and strangers alike were impressed by her talent and emotional depth. For the first time, she felt that her years of solitary practice had truly paid off. The recognition was not what she had sought initially, but it was a welcome acknowledgement of her hard work and dedication. The event sparked a new sense of possibility. She began to understand that her music could reach others, that it could move people, that her quiet dedication could have a powerful impact. This realization motivated her to continue refining her skills, to take more opportunities to perform, and to trust in her abilities. She also learned that stepping out of her comfort zone, while frightening, could lead to moments of profound reward. Her courage had been tested, and she had succeeded. She returned home that evening with a sense of accomplishment and a renewed connection to the piano. The instrument, which had been her companion through solitude and struggle, now felt like a bridge between her inner world and the wider world. She realized that the stage was not a threat, but an extension of her practice room. It's a place where she could share her music and her story with others. She felt a quiet pride in her perseverance and a deep appreciation for the journey that had led her to this moment. In the days following the event, people continued to talk about her performance. Some students who had previously doubted her approached with newfound respect, Teachers acknowledged her talent in ways they had never done before. Even strangers who had attended the event spoke about the emotional impact of her music. These reactions were rewarding, but she remained grounded, remembering that the true value of her journey was not in public approval, but in the growth, skill, and confidence she had gained along the way. She also began to see the event as a turning point. It was proof that opportunities could arise when least expected, and that preparation and dedication could transform nervous anticipation into confident expression. She realized that fear and doubt were natural, but they could be overcome through persistence, focus, and belief in oneself. The performance had shown her the power of music to connect people, to communicate feelings that words could not, and to create moments of shared experience. With this understanding, she continued to practice with renewed energy. She explored more challenging pieces, experimented with compositions, sought ways to express deeper emotions through her music. The piano became even more than a tool. It was a channel through which she could convey her experiences, her struggles, and her triumphs. Every evening, as she sat in front of it, she felt the growing power of her skills and the potential for her music to reach beyond the walls of her room. She also began to consider future possibilities. Could she perform in larger venues? Could she compete in competitions? Could she study music professionally? These questions excited her and fueled her ambition. She understood that the journey would not be easy, that challenges and setbacks would come, but she felt ready to face them. The event had given her a taste of what was possible, and a reminder that hard work and passion could break through doubt and uncertainty. Through it all, she remained humble. She knew that this was only the beginning, that there was still much to learn and many skills to refine. But the confidence gained from the performance, the acknowledgement of her talent, and the realization of what dedication could achieve strengthened her resolve. She felt a quiet excitement about the future, knowing that each day brought the chance to grow, to create, and to share her music in new ways. The experience also deepened her appreciation for the support of her family. Their encouragement, though quiet, had been a steady foundation throughout her journey. She understood that their belief in her, even when others doubted, had given her the courage to take this step. The piano, her practice, and her family combined to create a support system that allowed her to thrive, despite challenges and skepticism. By the end of this chapter of her life, she had discovered an important truth. Talent alone was not enough, but passion, dedication, and courage could overcome doubt and create moments of magic. She had stepped onto the stage, faced her fears, and let her music speak. In doing, the applause had faded, but the impact of her performance lingered in the room. People continued to talk quietly among themselves, replaying the notes in their minds, feeling the emotion she had poured into each chord. She stepped off the stage, her heart still racing, and felt a strange combination of relief and exhilaration. For the first time, she had let her music speak for her, and the result had been far more powerful than she had imagined. The piano had not only played notes, it had told a story, her story, and in that moment, she understood the true power of music. In the days that followed, she noticed subtle changes in the way people interacted with her. Some classmates who had doubted her before now greeted her with genuine curiosity and respect. Teachers nodded approvingly when she passed by, acknowledging her effort without needing to say much. Even strangers from the audience approached her with compliments, sharing how the music had touched them in ways words could not. It was overwhelming, and at first, she felt unsure how to respond. She had not played for recognition, but she realized that her dedication had finally been visible to others. It felt rewarding. The experience gave her a new sense of purpose. She returned to her room and sat at her piano, as she always did, but this time with a deeper understanding of her potential. The keys no longer felt like tools for private practice alone. They were instruments of connection. She began to experiment more boldly, exploring dynamics and expression she had previously been hesitant to try. Her compositions became richer, her melodies more intricate, and her emotional expression more nuanced. She realized that the stage had changed her not by granting fame or success, but by showing her what was possible when she trusted herself. Word of her talent spread quietly at first. A local music teacher heard about her performance and expressed interest in mentoring her. He saw something in her playing that went beyond technical skill. It was the emotional depth, the ability to tell a story without words. She was hesitant at first, unsure if she was ready for formal guidance, but curiosity and the desire to grow won over. The lessons began, and she discovered new techniques, improved posture, and refined her approach to rhythm and phrasing. Each session challenged her, pushing her beyond what she thought she could do, but also opening doors to possibilities she had never imagined. Her family continued to support her, though now their pride was evident. Her parents watched as she poured herself into practice, and they celebrated her small victories with genuine enthusiasm. They no longer worried that her passion was just a hobby. They saw that it was shaping her life in meaningful ways. Their encouragement, combined with the validation from teachers and strangers alike, created a foundation that strengthened her resolve and inspired her to reach higher. She began to take her music outside the familiar walls of her home and school. Small performances at community events, gatherings, and even casual meetings with friends allowed her to test her skills and grow more comfortable with public attention. Each performance was a lesson in itself, teaching her to adapt, to remain composed under pressure, and to connect with an audience in ways that were sincere and heartfelt. The piano became her voice, speaking for her when words were insufficient. Through these experiences, she learned an important lesson. True expression is not about perfection or technical skill alone. It is about honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to share what is inside. She began to notice subtle shifts in herself as she played, confidence in her posture, clarity in her movements, and a sense of calm that belied her inner excitement. The piano became not just a means of making music, but a reflection of her personal growth and inner strength. Challenges still arose. Some performances did not go as smoothly as she had hoped. Technical errors, nerves, or unexpected distractions sometimes interrupted the flow of her music. But rather than discouraging her, these moments became opportunities for growth. She learned to recover gracefully, to adapt quickly, and to view mistakes not as failures but as lessons. Each experience strengthened her resilience and deepened her understanding of the art of performance. She also began to experiment with collaboration, meeting other musicians, sharing ideas, and creating joint pieces expanded her understanding of rhythm, harmony, and improvisation. These collaborations were both exciting and challenging, requiring her to communicate clearly, listen actively, and adapt to new styles. Yet they also enriched her musical vocabulary, inspiring her to think creatively and take risks in her compositions. The piano was no longer a solitary pursuit. It became a bridge to others, fostering connection and shared creativity. Her dedication began to attract attention beyond her immediate community. Local events requested her to perform, and small competitions invited her to participate. She approached these opportunities with a mix of excitement and nervousness, remembering the lessons she had learned from her first performance. Each new experience reinforced the idea that music could speak universally, that her quiet dedication could resonate with others in meaningful ways. The piano had become a powerful tool, allowing her to express herself authentically and to leave a lasting impression on those who listened. Through it all, she remained grounded. She understood that recognition was fleeting and that the true value of her journey lay in growth, discipline, and personal fulfillment. She continued to practice diligently, revisiting foundational techniques, exploring new styles, and refining her compositions. Each session was a step forward, a chance to deepen her skill and expand her emotional expression. The piano was a constant teacher, challenging her, guiding her, and rewarding her with moments of beauty and accomplishment. She also developed a keen sense of empathy through music. As she performed, she began to notice the subtle reactions of listeners, the furrowed brows of concentration, the soft smiles, the eyes glistening with emotion. She realized that music had the power to touch hearts, to convey experiences and feelings that words alone could not capture. This understanding deepened her commitment, inspiring her to approach each piece with sincerity, to play not just for herself, but for those who would listen. Her compositions evolved alongside her performances. She began to write pieces that reflected her experiences, her emotions, and her observations of the world around her. Each composition became a personal narrative, a window into her inner life. She experimented with mood, tempo, and dynamics, learning how to shape the listener's experience through thoughtful arrangement and expressive execution. The process was both challenging and rewarding, allowing her to develop a unique voice that distinguished her from others as she continued to grow. She faced moments of doubt and fatigue, but the lessons of perseverance from her early years carried her through. She understood that progress was gradual, that mastery required patience, and that passion alone was not enough without consistent effort. She embraced the struggles, using them to refine her technique, strengthen her resilience, and deepen her emotional connection to the music. Every challenge became an opportunity to learn, and every success, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in herself. The piano had become a mirror, reflecting both her skill and her character. Through it, she had learned discipline, patience, creativity, and courage. Through it, she had discovered the power of expression, the importance of connection, and the value of perseverance. Each day spent at the keys was a step forward, a chance to explore new ideas, and an opportunity to share a part of herself with the world. By this point in her journey, she had begun to understand that music was more than sound. It was a language of emotion, a tool for connection, and a reflection of the human experience. She felt a profound respect for the art and for the role it played in her life. The piano had started as a simple instrument in a quiet room, but it had grown into a vessel for expression, a channel for communication. And a testament to her dedication, her confidence continued to grow, not from the applause or recognition, but from the knowledge that she had overcome doubt and embraced her passion fully. She realized that the piano had given her a voice, a presence, and a sense of identity that nothing else could. It had allowed her to face challenges, navigate uncertainty, and connect with others on a deep emotional level. Through it, she had discovered her own strength, resilience, and potential. With each performance, each composition, and each practice session, she continued to evolve as a musician and as a person. The piano remained her constant companion, guiding her, challenging her, and rewarding her with moments of beauty and fulfillment. She had learned to trust in her abilities, to embrace her journey, and to share her music with sincerity and courage. In the quiet moments after playing, she would sit back, reflect on her progress, and imagine the possibilities ahead. She dreamed of larger stages, more challenging compositions, and the opportunity to touch even more hearts with her music. Yet she also understood that the true reward lay in the process itself, the dedication, the growth, and the connection she experienced each time she played. Through it all, the piano remained a silent but powerful presence, shaping her life, expressing her emotions, and leaving a lasting impact on all who listened. It had carried her from doubt to recognition, from solitude to connection, and from uncertainty to confidence. Each note, each chord, each melody was a testament to her journey, her perseverance, and the transformative power of music. She had discovered that when one truly dedicates oneself to a passion, it can speak louder than words, leaving an impression that resonates long after the final note has faded by now. She had learned to trust in her own abilities, to see the piano not just as an instrument, but as an extension of herself. Her dedication had transformed her in ways she could have never imagined. The doubts that once surrounded her, the whispers at school, the cautious glances from teachers, the polite yet skeptical words from family and friends had all faded into the background. They were replaced with something far more powerful: confidence, experience, and a deep understanding of her own voice. The next opportunity arose unexpectedly. A larger music event featuring performers from across the region was being held in her town. The invitations were selective, and most people assumed she would not be on the list. But her earlier performance had caught the attention of organizers who were curious to see her play again. When she received the invitation, she felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was a stage bigger than any she had ever imagined, and the audience would be unfamiliar faces. Her nerves stirred, but they were accompanied by a sense of determination she had cultivated through years of practice. Preparation for this event became intense. Every day she spent hours practicing, refining her techniques and focusing on expression. She revisited the pieces that had brought her success before, perfecting them for a larger audience. And she composed new pieces that captured the journey she had experienced over the past years. She practiced not just for skill, but for emotion, for connection, and for the ability to convey her story through sound. The piano was no longer a private companion, it was her messenger, capable of telling her story louder than words ever could. Her family was more supportive than ever. They sensed her determination and the growth she had undergone, and they encouraged her to pursue this opportunity fully. Her parents reminded her to play with sincerity, to let the music reflect her feelings and experiences rather than attempting to impress anyone. Their support gave her a quiet confidence that steadied her nerves and helped her focus on what mattered most, sharing her music authentically. When the day of the event arrived, she entered the venue with a mixture of anticipation and calm. The room was filled with talented performers, musicians who had studied formally, had experienced performing before large audiences. Some people in the crowd whispered doubt, wondering how this young girl with a quiet demeanor would perform among them. But she ignored the murmurs, recalling the years of practice and the countless hours she had dedicated to the piano. She understood that the music itself was her,